Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tiny Blue Games. My name, of course, is Sisa or Chris, and today we're taking a look at Guild Wars 2 in 2019. Now, really quickly before I get into the video, in the background I'm going to be having some footage of the newest Living World episode, so if you haven't played it and you just don't want to see this footage, leave now, be aware of that. If not, I mean, it's been out for a while and it's really cool, so I was like, let's put this in the background. I think it's great, so enjoy it. The other thing I wanted to touch on is that I wasn't actually planning on releasing this video given the recent drama with Guild Wars 2 and ArenaNet this week, but I've done some soul searching and I think that this is actually the perfect time to release this video because, if anything, this video is going to tell you how Guild Wars 2 is one of the best and largest MMOs in the market, and if anything else, has been one of the most consistent MMOs over the past couple years. So with that in mind, I think it's a very good time to put this video out there, so let's get into it. What we're going to be looking at in this video are several main things. Primarily, we're going to focus on the player base, PvE content, PvP content, player progression, and then at the very end, we will do a bit of a talk on the future of Guild Wars 2 and expansions and what we can kind of expect based on the recent drama. So let's get right into it. The player base is composed of, I'm going to say, 3 main segments. The biggest one, by far, is the casual PvE players. These are the players that log in for the personal story, for the newest update. They play it for a bit, but they aren't committed to grinding it out every single day. They might have a couple things that they're working on, but it's not like they're logging in every day to raid or something like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, Guild Wars 2 is made for these players. And if you aren't at all related to these players, if you can't see yourself enjoying that kind of content, I would seriously question how much you want to get into Guild Wars 2, or if you are in Guild Wars 2 and you've been kind of sour about the type of content that's been developed, maybe you don't fit that segment, and that this is why. So I would be very aware of that, but as a new player, if you are that segment, someone who plays MMOs casually, I definitely think you should give this game a shot, because that is what ArenaNet is trying to build. Now, the next segment is the hardcore PvPer, or hardcore PvEer. That's kind of what I'd classify myself as. And when we look at Guild Wars 2, we really have 2 different types of hardcore PvE. We have the raids, which are 10-man content, and we have fractals, which are 5-man content. Now, raids are probably the most hardcore of these type of content, and with that said, they probably have the least amount of active content coming to the game. For instance, you can probably expect between 6 to 9 months for a 4-boss raid wing to come out, which is really slow compared to a lot of games that put focus on this. That being said, the actual quality of these raids is some of the best raiding content that I've ever played. In fact, I think Guild Wars 2 raids are my favorite rendition of raids. But simply based on the length of time between each content update for raids, it's really hard to stay committed. And this is something that's really forced me to sort of branch out to some other games and just sort of pop back in when there is a new raid added. So something definitely to be aware of. When it comes to 5-man content, Fractals of the Mist are your scaling dungeons. They go all the way from 0 to 100 in terms of difficulty, and they even sometimes have challenge modes, which really push it to another level. You could even consider that kind of a 5-man raid sort of style. But once again, we've seen ArenaNet really cut back in terms of how much hardcore fractals we're getting, and there's definitely been more of a focus on some casual fractals coming into the game as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if their analytics are telling them, hey, there's a lot of casual players, you guys really have to focus on the casual side of things, and that's completely fine. But there are those other pieces of content that when they do come in are great. Like, they're really good quality, You just have to wait a bit as a PvE hardcore player. The final segment then, as you might have guessed, is hardcore PvP players. And this really breaks down into structured PvP and Worldview World. Now, structured PvP is your 5v5 PvP in Guild Wars 2. It's your battlegrounds, as you were. And they are really just conquest style gameplay. They did play around with a different type of battleground, but it hasn't got much support since the launch of Heart of Thorns. So it is really the 5v5 conquest, but they do add new maps, which are still 5v5 conquest, but have like different little flavors to them. So there is new content coming in. I'd say you could probably expect 2 to 3 new 5v5 maps a year, or at least that's kind of been the pace that they've been going at. Maybe it's 2, but it's been pretty fun. And when those do get announced, you get to play them a lot because, if anything, the voting system of how you play a map in Guild Wars 2 is one of my favorite things, where it picks sort of 3 different maps. If it's a new map, it'll be in the beta, and you'll get to play it a fair bit if you're not doing ranked. And then it kind of makes its way to the ranked play eventually. So it's a really fun system, and I have a lot of fun playing it. It's great for casual players as well, because you don't have to earn PvP gear. You just get to swap around your gear really easily, and you just get it right away when you make your first character, once you go to the PvE or PvP lobby, that is. So it is a really good system for people who just want to get in there and try it. The harder part, though, is that you don't get the elite specializations of the other 2 expansions unless you do purchase them. So as a new player, that's something to be mindful of. If you see someone roll up on you with this really crazy elite spec, something to be aware of. And it's something that they might address, and they might have even addressed it, and I'm just not aware of it. If that's the case, make a comment, obviously, and I will pin it to the top for you, but that's kind of how it's been for a while now. So the other side of the coin is Worldview World v World, where you play against different realms, and it's super fun. If you're in the mood for large-scale PvP combat, the maps are beautiful. There's a lot of different little play styles and elements in there that you don't get to see anywhere else, and I think it is one of my favorite renditions of server versus server gameplay. There's obviously the drawbacks that come with every large-scale PvP, where it's hard to see your character sometimes, but it's exactly what you would expect. This does have gear that counts, so you could definitely be someone who has like full Ascended or full Legendary gear, and really destroy some other players. So it is more built for those people who want that side of it. And I think it's cool that you do have the option to PvP with both different sides here. So that is really cool. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about player progression, which is kind of my sticky point with Guild Wars 2, and it's very much a personal preference thing. And you can say that with any single MMO, any single game you play, really, that player progression is a personal choice, and Guild Wars 2 does it quite differently. It does horizontal progression as opposed to vertical, so you're not necessarily going to be always chasing a new piece of gear. In fact, you're going to do that for a very brief period of time once you hit level cap, and then once you've got your gear, once you've got Ascended gear, you're going to have the max stats. You do then have the option to go to Legendary gear, which is a tremendous amount of effort for only cosmetic rewards, which is a really cool sort of ending piece. The issue with the game as it progresses is that eventually, and I'm sure there's players in this situation, you're going to have Legendary gear in all of the places you can have Legendary gear. They haven't gotten to the point where they've released all of the trinkets and ring sets yet, I don't think, for Legendary gear, but they have released some of them. But one day there will be a situation where you have Legendary gear everywhere, and the question then will become, is it just getting different Legendary appearances, or will they do something more? The other side of the horizontal progression is the mastery system. Not every, but almost every new story patch, they'll have a new mastery that'll let your character do something different. For instance, there's been bouncy mushrooms, there's been different forms of gliding, different skills for your mounts to use, different mounts have been added. They do a lot of different unique things with this, and I think it's really fun. The hard part, though, once again, for people who are more hardcore, trying to play kind of a casual game, you can very easily have almost all you need to get the mastery right away, and then just really quickly finish off what you need once the content's released. So the whole game is about how you want to treat it. If you're someone who is interested in a game that you can come in and play for a little bit, really enjoy the story, really enjoy the quality of the maps, the quality of the content, and take your time, this is a great game. If you're someone who always needs a challenge, always needs something that they're doing, you might find yourself in a situation where you have maxed everything out that you want and you're waiting for the next thing to be added. So it is something to be aware. I mean, obviously you can go achievement hunting and stuff like that, and there's always things to do in a game, but you do get to a point where sometimes you're like, I just really want the next raid to come out and I don't have anything, so I'm just gonna jump back in. And that kind of brings me to the last part, which is looking at Guild Wars 2 with a bigger picture and future sort of vibe. There is no MMO that is better value for your money. And I think I could say that extremely confidently 4 years ago, and I can extremely confidently say it right now. You don't have to pay a subscription fee. You get regular content. You only pay for expansions. I mean, the base game is free now too, which is insane. The amount of content and gameplay you get for just paying that amount is insane. It's hands down the best deal I've gotten from an MMO. Now, they do have a cash shop, and I, as someone who has legendary gear and has raided, and has, I don't know, regularly logged into every story step, have never actually purchased anything with real money from the cash shop. In fact, you can even turn your gold into gems, and I know that happens in a lot of games, and it's like astronomical prices. And to be fair, when you first start the game, it is hard to get that amount of gold, but once you're an endgame player, you can easily make enough gold to, say, buy another character slot or buy a specific mount skin that you've been eyeing for a long time. Like, it's a very fair system, and I've never felt that it's ever come close to being a pay-to-win situation, which is such a dangerous game with cash shops. So it's really good in that way. Now, finally, let's get to the big ugly elephant. There has been a lot of rumors. I mean, there's been confirmed layoffs at ArenaNet. They lost over 100 employees. This is in the end of February 2019, just in case you're watching this at a later time and you want to know. So you have future knowledge that we don't get to work with. But this has all just happened recently this week, and there's been a lot of concern about where Guild Wars 2 will go in the future. Had you asked me a month ago, I would have very easily said that they will have a new story episode every 3 months and an expansion every 2 years, because that's kind of how consistent it's been for the last little while. With all the news that's come out, I would actually still say that we can probably expect kind of the same amount of content, that we can probably expect a story episode every 3 months, and I would still think that they're planning to do expansions, because the expansions have been a very successful and rewarding system for both players and the game developer, it seems like. But of course, we don't know all the bottom lines that the company actually sees, but it seems like they've been doing quite well, contrary to what the layoffs might tell you. The layoffs themselves seem to have hit some major Guild Wars 2 developers, but have also been about refocusing the company specifically on Guild Wars 2, where it had been branching out internally, it sounds like. And this refocused effort, I think, if anything, will maintain the same level of quality and content that we've been seeing. So that's all I can really say. That's all the official statements from ArenaNet have suggested too. And I think that's what we can really expect in the future. In terms of where I want to see them go, I'm a raider. I wish they would focus on raids a bit more, but I do think it is about the casual player in this game, and they do really well at catering to that player too. So I think that that is where the game has succeeded, and it needs to continue to succeed. I hope they do continue to build on their systems by adding future, like, more content, and I think that's the next expansion they need. The past two expansions have focused a fair bit on features, and Path of Fire focused a fair bit on world building and story building. I think what they need is an expansion that adds at launch like 2 or 3 fractals, 1 or 2 raids, and a couple maps. And I think if they did that and then they released maps as they are and an occasional raid and stuff like that, I think that would be a really good idea, is just to have a very content focused expansion without any kind of system overhaul, no bounty boards, no anything like that, just content. And I think it would be a really good thing, especially for some of the higher end community members that are waiting around. But all in all, guys, this is such a good game. If you haven't tried Guild Wars 2, or if you tried it way back in 2012 when it came out, it is a tremendously different game from 2012, and I think you definitely deserve to try it again. If you're playing the game and loving it and were just interested in hearing someone else's thoughts on it, especially after all the drama, please share your own thoughts in the comments below. I really make an effort to make sure that I reply to any comment that I get when I can, and I will pin any comments that I really like to the top as well. So please do that. I always enjoy it. If you're new to the channel, hey, I'm Tiny Blue Games. We casually play MMOs, and this might be a community for you. So check us out. And yeah, thanks guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.